Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. Together we are K and A. Do K and A is solid. Like this video, like right now. Don't even wait to see if it's worth a damn. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're oh so close to hitting 13,000. And you know what they say? Once you hit 13,000 subscribers on YouTube, 1 million in like 2 weeks. So just help us out. And of course, leave your video comments in the videos section. Today, we're talking about players position by position whose stock went straight through the roof over the course of the last month or so in August camp as the Longhorns get ready in less than 2 weeks now to take on La Monroe, that means there's only like 3 weeks away until Alabama. So much on the immediate horizon, Anwar. We could do this like position by position and start at the quarterback position and go from there. Or we could just start with guys that immediately jump out and then circle back if we want to. How do you want to approach this?
Well, that's a fascinating question, a fascinating way to do it. I'd rather do position by position.
And we won't miss anybody.
Yes.
Well, let's start at the quarterback position then. There is we don't want to get negative and be up and down, but there's got to be a category for guys that aren't up, and we'll just put them like the same. Is that all right? Because I kind of my position on the quarterbacks, I think it would be easy to say that Quinn Ewers is up. I would probably co-sign that he's up. And yet there's a part of me that feels he's kind of in the same position that he was coming into camp, that there's still not been a ton of growth there at the position, and that's something that they're still waiting for. So, and I kind of feel the same way about Hudson Card, quite frankly, whether the position has been won or lost or whatever. I kind of want to pass on saying that either of the main primary quarterbacks are up. Although I say that with the caveat of, look, if you just want to say that Quinn Ewers won the job, therefore putting him in a position to have a chance to be up, I completely understand where that's coming from. I'm going a little meta on this one.
Yeah, no, I'm going to keep it simple. Look, going to your ladder. The guy who wins the job, he's up. So, I'm going to go say, Quinn's thing has definitely been up.
Tell Hudson Card in 2021 that.
Yeah, well, after a couple of games, we'll check back after Alabama, right? But, Quinn's stock is clearly up, and he was able to do whatever it took to win the starting job. And, I would also say from a sneaky perspective, even though there's not been a lot put on his plate, but I think Malik Murphy's stock has been up as well, just as a backup, just from his growth and development, being healthy in training camp and being able to do a couple of things. And, just his presence that we hear a lot about out there. You hear the people talk about the quarterbacks, and maybe there's sometimes they've been like, I don't know. But then you've also heard him say, but that Malik Murphy guy looks pretty good. That's always been a thing. So I say Quinn's stock is up, and I would say from whatever small stock you may have in Malik, Jason Sukumel's got a ton, but whatever that is, I think that stock is probably done a slow rise as well.
Well, I own stock in Malik Murphy, and I check the pages every day. That stock is still the same. However, to your point, he's shown flashes, and depending on where you are if you own Malik Murphy stock, God, you're damn right he's at least shown some flashes. If you're lukewarm or just didn't have any expectations whatsoever, probably the up, that will determine whether or not you think he's truly up or right about where he's supposed to be. I'm still at that. I am still at a not willing to give anybody an up at the quarterback position unless we're doing it for the sake of doing it. And then if you're going to do it, Anwar's explanations. Anwar explains it well.
Yeah, he's got to be up.
But I feel like in the spirit of actually up, I will pass on that position. The running back position is an interesting one because we essentially remove Rashawn Johnson from the conversation. He's been out for most of camp with an injury. He's not up or down, and he's just sidelined, which is its own form of category in this type of debate. I'm giving you the entire platform of running backs. Who gets an up for you?
The stock rose is Jaden Blue. I mean, I think that's the guy whose stock rose. And you talk about a guy who didn't play, the senior year in high school and what that was going to look like. Him kind of starting off a little bit slower in the spring and just trying to get back into football shape to the point where Roschon Johnson goes down and they didn't go to Brooks. I mean, they went to Jaden Blue. I think that was a clear signal of where he was at. Even the clear signal where everyone was at on the depth chart. So for me, a Jaden Blue stock, rose tremendously. That's whatever you bought in that one, you're definitely seeing some sort of return because Jaden Blue looks like a guy that, if they have a chance to lean on him, they will this year, Catch. But he definitely looks like the guy when Roschon and Bijan are gone, the guy that we're looking at probably as the number one guy, at least next season.
100% agree. I don't know how you couldn't mention Blue, quite frankly. But he's been a guy that, as scrimmages have been played, as practice has gone on, he continues to elevate himself into the pecking order of the running back position, a thing that's not easy to do. Even with Roschon out, you're still talking about Keelan Robinson looking for reps. You're still looking for Jonathan Brooks looking for reps. This is a team that comes into this year really deep at running back, and to be able – I expect to see Blue play in the opener. And I don't know that I thought I would have said that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I would have thought, well, if it's 70-0 and all of the fourth and the fifth string guys have gotten a touch or two, maybe, unless this game plays out different and it's a closer game than I'm anticipating, I think we see obviously Keelan Robinson will play in that game, but I think we'll see Jaden Blue play in that game as well. And I'm fascinated to watch his trajectory throughout this season because, like you said, he's very quickly putting himself into a position of front runner for when this starting running back's job becomes open in a few months when the Bijan Robinson's season is done once and for good. What about Bijan, though? I kind of want to put a stock up on him as well. It hasn't been a camp where he's been talked about nonstop, but there's got to be something said for a guy who just puts his head down, does his work, and then whenever you ask people like, "Oh, how did he look?" Oh, they're like, "Oh yeah, no, he made people look silly and he scored touchdowns and he looked great." His level of performance is such that I think it gets taken for granted, but he had a really good camp.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know what's more impressive about Bijan Robinson, this performance during camp or the mustard that he came out with, and that creative packaging was labeled with that. Like that stock up for me to be able to do that. But yeah, Bijan's Bijan, and you're right. It's easy to take for granted. You forget about it. It's kind of like we've talked about. Some of the, it's easy to say something about Sam Ehlinger until Sam Ehlinger isn't here, and then go, oh, I sure miss Sam Ehlinger. And I'm not saying, and obviously Bijan from a talent level, position by position, is a little bit higher. But I think you can't. Yes, Bijan's stock is all the way up. But here's the other thing you would add to that, Catch. As a guy who's going to be more involved in the pass catching game this season, that shows that his game is expanded, that Sarkisian trusts him a lot. So, for him to be a component that they're going to look for in a passing game, definitely stock up.
Yeah, sometimes the Longhorns will go to their 12 personnel or even to an empty set, but there's 2 tight ends on the field or a tight end on the field. I've always wondered, Bijan's got that skill set in him. I'd be terrified if I was a DB having to go up against. It would be very off-putting because what exactly do you do with that guy? He's a player that I would put in that position on offense at least a few times a game, just to keep that defense forever wondering what does it look like when that guy is out on the perimeter as a receiver. Don't find out the hard way. If we move on to the wide receiver position. It's a curious one. I've got maybe 3 or 4 names that might make an up list for me. Do you want me to take one and then We
Yeah,
go
take
back and
one
forth.
because I've got one that I'll take real. I know where I'm going. Let's see where you go.
With all due respect to my guy Jay Witt, who I want to give a bed of roses and say everybody's been talking about you left and right, it's hard not to just say Tyreek Milton because he's suddenly a very important player in this Texas offense, where when he was taken a few months ago as a grad transfer from Iowa State after Ajay Hall had already committed, after they had brought in Jaleel Billingsley as an H-back tight end type guy, after they bring in Isaiah Nayor, right? Milton comes in, and I think there was a lot of, well, if you think he can help at all, go ahead and throw a flyer to him because you can get that scholarship back next year. No harm, no foul. He's going to be a starter, presumably in the slot, taking Jordan Whittington's position now that he has to play at the X, although I expect to see Whittington play in both spots during the season. But, I mean, that was a late grab transfer, and all we've heard are positive things about him since he's been into camp, and now he's a very needed player. If we were like drafting ups or downs or whatever, I don't know. He's the best player that I'll say up on, but he might be the up I would say the most.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, for a guy that you expect to have an impact this season, from that stock perspective, he's definitely up. Just because of, like you said, what he's going to be able to add into that receiving group, room where, you look at it, losing Isaiah Nayor, and you say to yourself, well, that sucks. Man, that, sucks for him and everything to that effect. But when you look at what else is in the room, you don't say, well, that's a death blow. Like, there's other rooms you look at. If you lose a key star, you say to yourself, man, I don't know how they're going to recover from this. This one, you say to yourself, very unfortunate. Could have been something special. Also got some, pretty good guys, and Tariq is in there. All right, can I give you my guy who I feel like has
absolutely
jumped? We'll see if we see it this season. But the name everyone keeps talking about, Taveon Red. That's the name, Ketch, that comes out of everybody's mouth, whether it's Sarkisian, whether the players start talking about him. They've named him, the players have nicknamed him Debo because they say he reminds them of Debo Samuel just because of his build and his athleticism. I've heard a lot about receivers, Ketch, and you remember last year around this time, the name we kept hearing about, it was Xavier Worthy. I hear so much about Xavier right now. I don't know what that means for his production is concerned this season, but for whether whether he comes in at times or this is a next year thing, that guy's stock has seemingly gone through it. It may not gone through the roof, but he's a definitely buy now kind of guy.
Yeah, he's an interesting one for me. Didn't hear a lot about him last week. Didn't hear a lot about him in the scrimmage on Saturday. I think he's one for the future. And I think part of it is he came in with such low expectations. He's established that he's good enough. So he belongs. And, I think there's been more buzz certainly from him than Brennan Thompson. I think there's a weird Brennan Thompson conversation to be had on another show potentially about a guy we thought would be really involved. If you told me in July that Isaiah Nayor would get hurt and they would have to move some things along, who might benefit the most from an injury, I might have thought Brennan Thompson in the slot, and that hasn't quite happened. He and Taveon Red are going to get some snaps, I think, in that position. I'll give you another one because I think Taveon Red, absolute buy. Like I said, I think this is a position with several. I do think Jordan Whittington deserves an up because he may be the most versatile player in that Texas wide receiving core, and now that seems really important. And I've had a number of people in the last week say things like, man, he's gotten bigger and he just looks more physically impressive. And so much so that people have crossed their fingers that getting a little bit more yoked up doesn't somehow make Jordan Whittington more injury prone. or he could just be injury prone. I mean, if he gets hurt this year, I can't blame it on him lifting a little bit more weights. It's kind of a yearly tradition at this point. I will, before we leave this position, give Casey Kane a small up. Don't know what his role is going to be. I've thought of him as mostly a jag, and that's kind of unfair because he made some plays in the spring as well. But he's not one of these super recruits. He's not one of these guys that I just think is absolutely going to play. But it seems like he makes a play or two every practice. He'll get a name drop from sources, and he's not that far away. If there was another injury, it's not crazy. If Jordan Whittington got hurt today, I think Casey Kane would probably move into the starting spot in the X. And that just seems I wouldn't have thought that a month ago. So for those words to come out of my mouth, surprise me a little bit. Mm-hmm. And thus I will give him a well-deserved up.
Fair enough. Very fair enough.
You got any tight ends you want to lead off with?
I mean, the one's the obvious, right? There's the obvious.
There's only one that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tavian Sanders, right? I mean, that's a guy that I'll probably talk a little bit about on my Drunk Uncle on Wednesday, so I'll save some of it for that. But that's a guy whose stock has definitely gone through the roof. And that was a guy that when you're looking at beginning and maybe in the spring, you may not have thought you would be here at this moment. But right now, I mean, hell, he spoke to the media last week. And you say to yourself, what does that mean? Coaches don't put guys out who they don't think are just bona fide studs that are doing everything, behind the scenes and on the field, and they view them as a leadership role. You put that guy out there, that tells me everything I need to know. And everybody's been raving about Tavian Sanders. He's finally living up to the hype, the reputation. It seems like everything is clicked. Tavian Sanders for me.
Yeah, and I think the only question I have is how much will they honestly try to work him into the offense? If you tell me a lot, I think that guy is potentially poised for a huge season. If you tell me that it's on par with what a Steve Sarkisian offense at the collegiate level typically does, we may not see Tavian Sanders have the big explosion that we think a player of his talent could pull off. It really will come down to what the offense wants to dictate towards the other side of the ball. And again, Sarkisian's offense has been very wide receiver friendly throughout his career. Using a player like Tavian Sanders hasn't been a big part of his career. So having this type of, even weapon is something that will be interesting to watch unfold as we go throughout the year. All right, Anwar.
Wait, hold up. Honorable mention to Juan Davis, though. Honorable mention to Juan Davis.
Fair enough. I'm a Juan Davis fan. On the offensive line, there's maybe like 4 or 5 ups. They're all freshmen, right? Every single freshman offensive lineman gets an up. Kelvin Banks gets an up. Campbell gets an up. Hudson gets an up. Cameron Williams gets an up.
There you go.
And I'm not really sure anybody else. I mean, no, there's nobody else that deserves an up that I've heard.
Those are the guys whose stock, rose and went through the roof. And not just because they're freshmen, so they had nowhere to go but up, but because what we hear about what they do in practice and the impact that they're having and the presence that they have, Ketch. I mean, that's really has a lot to do with it. It's Banks living up to the reputation says a lot. Campbell living up to the reputation, to your point, says a lot. Hudson as well. So yeah, those guys' stock is going through the roof. Now, what that looks like in this year versus next year, probably be 2 different looks. But for right now, at least we'll know they'll play. They'll be in the mix. They'll contribute a lot, and from that point along, it's just about their growth and development.
Need to throw in Hayden Connor as well. Oh, yeah. He's a guy that deserves an up. Cannot wait to see that first group take the field in less than 2 weeks against La Monroe. When it all starts to count and matter, what does that group look like as a 5? Is, for me, co-storylines of the day. it's the debut of Quinn Ewers. It's the debut of that offensive line, and it's the debut of this second-year defense and how good it can be. But, boy, we're talking about storylines of the season, that offensive line, the youth, and the guys that we've set up, how much they can make that mean something during the season will help define this entire topic of the 22-22 season for the Longhorns. All right, Anwar. Let's do defensive ends / edge.
Okay, so
is there one?
Stock up. I mean, I guess to a certain degree, Ovi, you would have to say his stock would be up. I think
his stock was highest in the spring, and then he goes to Big 12 Media Days.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I hadn't really heard, other than the other day when it was like Ovi got a pressure and a sack at the second scrimmage. Nobody has mentioned his name to me so far during camp.
Okay, so
maybe I was going to say Overshown as a guy that's been mixing in.
Yeah, I think we heard something about him having an interception at some point during one of the scrimmages or something to that effect. I mean, Overshown would probably then be a guy. Yeah, maybe Ovi.
I mean, it's been pretty quiet on the Finkley front and the Jamon Tapp front. And I think you and I are both big fans of Baron Searle, but it's been pretty quiet camp there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can fake it or we can just say pass.
We would just say there's some work that needs to be done on the edge, to have that thing established. But to their defense, but while we may think about the individuals, we have heard that the defense has played well throughout this offseason, throughout training camp. Like, we've heard about the pressures and all that type of stuff. Again, we'll see how all shapes out and plays when it's all said and done. But we have heard positives as far as them being able to get to the quarterback.
El Paso is not just a city in Texas near the border. If we go to interior defensive linemen, it does feel like the conversation changes slightly.
Right? I mean, because then you can have the Vernon Broughton conversation at that point, Ketch, and that seems to, I guess, of anyone's stock, is that the guys whose stock rose the highest, would you say?
It's rose the highest from the lowest depths.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he comes into camp behind 4 or 5 guys. And to have constantly had his name mentioned really for most of the start of camp, he's put him – I'll be surprised if he doesn't play a relatively important position on that defense as they rotate their interior linemen. I mean, Byron Murphy is their best player, I think. His stock is up for me, but I think Broughton's is up the highest because of how low it was. The question is Sweat, Alfred Collins, Keandre Coburn, Moro Ajomo. None of those dudes are up, would you say?
I mean, Sark went out of his way the other day to say that, when he was talking about some of the younger guys, that re-emphasized Coburn and what he's been able to do and his happiness with Coburn. And I think he's gone out of his way to mention Coburn on multiple occasions as a guy that don't sleep on him. So, I mean, if you trust what the head coach says, then,
I don't always trust what he also has said 2 weeks ago, like, our quarterbacks are both competing at elite levels. And that's on days when, like, each of them had 4 turnovers. So I'm just saying.
Okay, fair enough. So do you got someone?
No, not from that group, which is surprising. I just don't know that coming into camp, I would have thought Murphy, absolutely, right? But if you just said it's Murphy, Broughton, then maybe more, and then maybe Keandre Coburn third beyond that. Like I would say yeah to that. The problem is if you eliminate stuff that the coaches have said in press release briefings, those names, we're hearing that the defensive line is doing good, that they're winning their battles against the offensive line. But individually, I have not had people coming up to me and saying, yo, T'Vondre Sweat, absolute monster. He looks like a few. I'm not hearing individually any of these guys have their name said. I don't quite know what to do with that other than it sounds like Broughton and Murphy have been the two guys talked about the most. And then you're right. Sark has certainly sung the praises of Keandre Coburn. I just can't believe that Maro Ajomo and T'Vondre Sweat, and this was supposed to be such a big Alfred Collins year. It's hard for me to believe those guys are just kind of on the periphery right now.
Yeah, it's weird because I think that if I'm correct, Sark mentioned those as guys who needed to do more. And he wanted to see a little bit more out of like all three of those guys. So it is interesting there. The surprising one for me obviously is maybe Collins. That seems to be the surprising one because we've seen the light bulb go off with JT Sanders, and so you understand like, okay, you've been waiting for this thing with Alfred Collins to finally hit, and Sarkisian said he's almost there, but there's something that's not clicking or working in practice for him to do it consistently enough, and he's got to work on that portion of it. Sweat is another one of those guys too. Too bad Dustin isn't here because Dustin McComas, that was his dude. You couldn't tell Dustin anything about T'Vondre Sweat. He's another one that you thought, okay, maybe. And so I
thought that was Taquan Graham that he was Coco.
Yeah, he did love Taquan. He did love T'Vondre though. I got to check in with Dustin.
I don't know. He was like the president of the Taquan Graham fan club.
He loved him so Taquan Graham though.
That does not mean that he didn't also love T'Vondre. It may just mean that I will forever be blinded by the love that he had for Taquan.
It was very. I mean, to a certain degree, and maybe he was right. I mean, Taquan did get drafted, so maybe Dustin had a point. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But, he did. He did.
If we go to linebackers, you could make a case that there's an interesting story to go there, right? You could make a case that Jaylen Ford, DeMarvion Overshown, and Diamante Tucker Dorsey, a.k.a. Tuck, all three of them have been talked about in ways that might put them in the up category. But I don't know that anybody below them, a single one beyond them, you would say that about. So they kind of like we knew coming into the season, they were really going to lean on and depend on their first guys. It's a position, though, that lacks a lot of depth.
Yeah, I mean, now Sark can tell you differently. He'll tell you he's got Jet Bush there, Diamante Tucker Dorsey there. Like he'll run down the list of guys that are on the roster.
And I'm including Tucker Dorsey in the up right now, like as a top 3 guy.
Yes. Well, he'll put Bush in there as well as a guy that is providing depth. So, but for me, the up, I'll stay consistent with it, Ketch. It's up, stay with Jaylen Ford. I mean, I've been riding with that all off season, and I haven't seen anything or heard anything differently. I mean, he's getting to the point where he has been so productive and consistent that you don't mention it. They don't mention him as much. But, Jaylen Ford is still, a guy that we would expect to have an impact. Everyone on the team seems to, like him and his productivity. So Ford would be the guy for me.
Tuck is the guy that's the most up. If he isn't, and to be fair, coming from a small school, there were some legitimate doubts. I mean, a year ago, Sarkisian backdoored his way into a small school cornerback through the portal that didn't play very much early on, that was more of a Tom Herman guy than anything else. By the end of the year, that guy ends up being a pretty good player, but early on, kind of forgotten. Most of what Sarkisian goes for in the portal are guys from major programs. So Tucker Dorsey is a bit of an anomaly of what they look for in the transfer portal. And had he not had a good summer and just drifted off into the waste, it might be a situation where Sark's like, I'm not doing that again. However, Tucker Dorsey's playing well enough that it does allow him to move to the weak side linebacker and for the Longhorns to move Overshown into a different, sometimes at the edge position and obvious passing downs that probably isn't available if he's not around. And then just in general, depending on how well he plays this year, it may open the eyes of the way Sark views players in the portal with big resumes who are from small schools. It's not his natural thing, but man, if you have a little small taste of success, it makes you want more. I think Tucker Dorsey's an important player for the Longhorns this year for a couple of different reasons. That he got off to a much better start than, say, a Devin Richardson did at this point 12 months ago, who you might also give a baby up to just because he's at least put himself in with the reserves and the two deep where he was just oblivious a year ago. But yeah, Tucker Dorsey and Ford, those are the main two guys in terms of you've heard the most buzz about. They've been the two at the linebacker position. Let's move over to the secondary.
Okay.
I've been thinking about this one almost since the start of the video. Who in the secondary are you willing to give an up to?
I mean, there's a couple that come off the name, so we're concluding all of them. I mean, Jaylen Gilbo seems to be a guy. Is that your guy? That's my first thought.
Biggest up. He's the biggest.
Yes. So I think having Gilbo would be my number one as far as the big ups are concerned. Looks like I got three. This guy's a backup, but Mo Blackwell seems to be a name that has been mentioned a ton. And then the other guy that seems to be that I've seen and heard of a lot is Desean Jameson. And that's the third. Those are the top three for me. And I'll let you expand on your end.
The two that really stand out in my mind are Gilbo, who, along with Jahdae Barron, really strengthens up what they call the star position, that nickel corner slot. I think Texas feels really good right now. Whomever they have playing there might end up be one of the best players on the defense. I wonder if Gilbo is good enough initially that he starts to take some of Barron's snaps. Interesting that Barron at this time, 6-7 months ago, was playing as one of the team's best defensive backs. It is always curious when the guy they start talking about is your backup a lot. And Gilbo has had a lot of run. He may be the single most impressive freshman class member on the team right now. And, I'm just curious to see how that goes. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point during the Alabama game or the UTSA game, we were noticing that Gilbo is playing more than occasional reps. And in order for that to happen, who gets moved around? So it's hard not to name him. Desean Jameson's had a hell of a camp. All you can ask of your corners is don't get beaten badly. Get your hands on some footballs, make some interceptions, be a creator. And that's what he's done throughout all of the fall. He has intercepted passes. He's been a guy that shows up as, there was a couple of interceptions in practice. Jameson got one. Now we know because a year ago it was Brockermeyer that had like 5 interceptions in camp. And then when the game started, it no longer mattered.
Yeah.
When the first game starts, those picks won't matter for Desean Jameson. But for a guy that Anwar and I 12 months ago was talking about being a potential top 3 round kind of player, his emergence this year builds a little bit of faith for me that that's still a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, the way we're hearing about him performing and seeing him perform, you start thinking to yourself, all right, he might be in that mix, as a high day 3 pick kind of, deal, with borderline 3rd round, but, more like high 3, just based off everything. Desean, and of course, one of the reasons we always felt that way Ketch too was because of his return ability. So if he can add on those two dimensions, I think that Texas will be fine, and he definitely is in there. And by the way, just because I'm just gonna throw it in there with low expectations or whatever, I'm gonna throw in Michael Taft as just a little bit of a stock rising. Now his stock won't hit where it needs to be until the man gets a scholarship. But I'm gonna make it my goal to continue talking about the need for give Michael Taft a scholarship. But Ketch, can't deny that in scrimmages, I think in both scrimmages, we heard Michael Taft had an interception in both of them, and that says a lot for a walk-on guy. And I don't know if Quinn threw both of those or not. I think I remember one. But yeah, I'm going to throw both. Speaking of dogs and bones, throw my attaboy to Michael Taft.
That's my dog's way of saying she doesn't want to hear anything about the special teams. And you know what? That's probably fair. Look, we've gone up and down on the defense. Do us a solid. Like the video. My dog agrees. Subscribe to the channel. The lawn guys have shown up. Ooh. And she wants a piece of the lawn guys. So it's completely fair barking. For myself and Anwar Richardson, leave your comments in the comments section as well. We'll see you. I'll be doing a show Tuesday night. OB at night. So depending on when you watch this, look and see that might be happening right then. Plus on Wednesday, we've got the Drunk Uncle. Plenty of videos coming up on Orange West Texas football here throughout the week. You guys take care of each other. Later.